Well, Chris, your favorite topic, and I know this has become a staple here of the show.
Yes. Let's go.
Is our hot take segment. All right, so our hot take of the week here, Washington wins the Pac-12. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Oh my God! And is Daniel in on the chat tonight? Because he is he has beat me over the head with Washington 91 winning a national title. That was their second one ever. Could they do it? Yes. Are they going to do it? No. This schedule, Christian's got it pulled up here, brother. We'll go through this. Kent State. I'm going to go through this quickly. Let's be honest.
This is from last year.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. Well, they were 11-2 last year. Hell of a year last year.
Yeah.
Can you bring up the most recent one though? Love this guy. You just yell at him and he pulls it up. Boise State. You're like my secretary. Which
Jesus. Pull that up, Jamie.
No, Boise State. I can't even do this right. Boise State, Tulane. Michigan State, I think, is like kind of an interesting game. Not that I think Michigan State's going to be great this year, but it is a Big Ten team. Cal, Arizona. Here's the team that I think you see it right there, October 14th. Mm-hmm. That's the team I have winning the Pac-12, and I'm going to stick with that, dude. I've been stuck in Oregon all year, even though I'm not a huge Oregon fan. I would actually personally love to see Washington beat them. Arizona State, Stanford, USC, another big. They got a rough schedule as far as they got both those big name teams there. Oregon State, Washington State. Can Washington win the Pac-12? Yeah. Michael Penix Jr. bringing back a lot of guys. That offense is going to be dynamic. I think a lot of people have him finishing. There's a lot of people have him winning the Heisman this year. Coming out of Indiana, I watched him play at Indiana. He had some great games there too. But Christian, what do I always say about the Pac-12?
They have terrific defenses. Is that what you were going to say?
Complete opposite of that, but you know where I'm going. That's my problem. It's like I don't know. I think it's just so top heavy between them, Oregon, and USC again. And you're throwing at a dartboard between those three teams as far as winning this thing this year. I'm just very high on Oregon as far as Bo Nix coming back. We also know that Caleb Williams is coming back for USC, and you can make the same case for him. I'm just leaning Oregon because I believe that their defense is going to be better than those other two teams. I am not a Lincoln Riley guy. I think that team is a lot of hype. I do think USC is going to be obviously very good. They got a lot of talent. Washington is actually, if your hot take would have been, Chris, do you think Washington your favorite team to win as far as the Pac-12? I would have said yes. I'm actually rooting for them to win it, but I'm going to take Oregon. I'm going to cut this short. USC, it's those three teams. Christian, bring it to me real here. I mean, we've talked about these three a lot, and I know we need to give some love to Washington. I hope it happens. That's the thing. I hope it happens. I just don't see it happening this year.
Listen, I don't think this is as crazy as you do. Okay, I mean, obviously, I think they can absolutely do it. I think they got one of the most underrated hires in college football when a year ago when they brought in Kalen DeBoer. Okay, his first year at Washington, which was last year, he went 11-2, and he lost to Arizona State. Which again, I'm gonna. This is the word of the week here: fluke game. Okay, and UCLA. Those were his two losses last year. Now they didn't have to play. They didn't have to play certain teams. Like USC or Utah last year, but still they beat number 11 Michigan State last year. They lost to UCLA and their quarterback, Thompson Robinson. I think he's not there anymore. Arizona State. I mean, that was just a weird sort of fluky game that they ended up losing. But other than that, I mean, they beat Oregon State. They beat Oregon. To me, they even beat Texas in that, in a bowl game last year. Here's the thing, Chris, and this is why I really like it over there, is they're bringing back Michael Penix Jr. Okay?
100%.
Now, he put up, oh, God, dude, he put up 4,600 yards last year to go alongside of, was it 35 total touchdowns? 35 total touchdowns. I mean, the kid balled the fuck out last year. Here's the other side of it, dude. See that kid right there, Rome, the wide receiver.
Yep.
How many yards did it say he put up?
Yeah, it's a boatload.
Guess who else they're bringing back? This guy right here, McMillan.
He had like 900, didn't he? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he had. I mean, they're bringing back guys that combined. They combined for over 1,000 yards last year. I mean, they put up some touchdowns. They also bring back a backup running back in Cameron Davis, I should say, who had 522 yards and 13 touchdowns.
Okay. So you just mentioned that they didn't play USC last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned that they didn't play fucking Oregon, right? Oh, no, they beat Oregon. They beat Oregon.
They beat Oregon.
You have to. So I guess with I mean, Christian, you're not a dumb shit. You know that Oregon's super highly rated, right? We know Oregon brings back a lot of pieces with Bo Nix in that offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that Caleb Williams, who you're very high on, we got in arguments about him, right? Mm-hmm. You think they got to play both those teams. I mean, in order to win the Pac-12, you're probably going to have to basically run the table to get into the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not talking wins Pac-12. I know that. I agree, but it's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and the good thing too is
a slip-up team. You know, there's always a slip-up team, right? Oregon State, or you fuck around and lose to Washington State for the Apple Bowl or something crazy, right? I mean, are you that much higher than me on like you? I mean, what happens if Washington goes 9-3?
Well, like I said, and here's the other side of it too. You know, I'm not as again Lincoln Riley and in his track record of it. I mean, he's gone to a worse conference over there in the Pac-12 from the Big 12, but I feel like he always has a couple of slip up games where it's really close or whatever have you. And like I said, I think Caleb Williams is going to have some kind of down games this year, and like I said, I think, do they go undefeated this year? No, but can they have a 10-plus win season and somehow a 9-10 win season, and maybe they get lucky and everybody else kind of slips and has a couple of losses? Okay. They end up making it to the Pac-12 game because just like you said, they're kind of doing that same model where they eliminated divisions.
Right, but I mean, they went 11-2 last year and they still didn't win the Pac-12.
No, I mean, they didn't. But here's the other side of it too, right? I mean, who was it? Utah and USC, right? That was pretty much the way that all played out. So they're going to play Utah and USC this year on top of Oregon. So Utah, in my opinion, Cam Rising, I think, is coming back over there.
Love him.
But they're losing, arguably two of the best parts of their offense and running backs and different players, and that defense is taking a big hit. Here's the other side of it. They know defensively they got to get some shit shored up. I mean, you've brought up once or twice now about the Pac-12 and really primarily the Huskies defense has to be better this year.
It does. It does. And I'm going to take over here right now because you're exactly right. So that's where I'm very, 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 very drawing the line in the fucking sand here with Washington. Like if your defense plays like I actually think that they could play, and you in those games against USC, you force them into a fucking 3rd and long and make Caleb Williams throw the fucking football under a little bit of pressure. And I'll say the same for fucking Bo Nix in Oregon. If you do that in that game and you win those games, yes, Washington deserves this fucker all day long, man. I get very adamant about this about Washington because I think Michael Penix is going to put up fucking numbers this year, dude. His numbers were astronomical last year.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you really want to look at it last year, he could have won the fucking Heisman, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, for what he had to work with, I mean, he's got a ton of talent around him, but that kid relies a lot on his arm, a little bit of his legs. I mean, the kid's a talented dude. You're bringing him back again. That's where I get like into this like heated debate with people about Washington. Is like, can your defense and can you win the games that you're supposed to win, not lose to Arizona State? And that's no knock on Arizona State, but you should win that game. Utah, you should win that game. You're the better team. And that's where I get down to this, Christian. I get fired up about it is like, I'm not hating on Washington as far as like, I actually want them to win it, but can you beat the teams when you need to beat them? Like, do you beat Oregon, USC this year? But do you lose to freaking Utah, and do you lose to Arizona State or maybe a Washington State in the Apple Bowl? You know what I mean? Can you sustain that excellence? And that's what I want to see out of Washington. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that and to wrap this up.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. You can't have that sort of that off game, and really, especially not against USC, Utah, or Oregon, or Michigan State for that matter. But You definitely can't do it, with Arizona State, Stanford, Washington State, those schools that you're kind of like supposed to win against. I mean, here's the reality. Last year, Chris, they finished ranked 60th in total team defense. So there again, I think the team you brought up, and I'm thinking back and it jogged my memory, Ohio State. The Ohio States where they don't really play anybody and they benefit sometimes from playing sort of an anemic offenses. So they look a lot better and then they get in those big games and it turns into like a boat race and they have to put up a bunch of points. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, it just sometimes it doesn't. Here's where they were really, really bad. And that was against the pass. They ranked 100th out of 130th against the pass. Old Chuck Morrell and William Inge over there, Bill Inge, their co-defensive coordinators. And you said it. They have to get this thing figured out. I mean, they really do. I think, Kalen DeBoer, again, he was in his first year last year. So Washington was in a pretty bad spot when he took over. And I think he's going to get it figured out. Kind of like with Nebraska, to use another analogy here on a team all about and I know all about. I think Nebraska's defense, if you just go from the statistical standpoint of everything, you would say, oh my God, Nebraska, they're going to get crushed this year on defense. I don't think that's the case. I think if you do a couple of things, and that is you make a couple of changes in the scheme and you also start practicing being more physical in practice, I think that's going to kind of shore that up, for Nebraska. And I think the same thing over here, at Washington, that's going to help. And I'll end it with this, Chris. They have the 6th toughest schedule in the Pac-12. So they're sort of right. They don't have the easiest, but they don't have the hardest either. So it's very run of the mill. I think they bring back a ton of production, sort of like Utah did last year. And we know what happened when Utah went in there. Right? I think how they can win some of these games is, the defense, if it can if you can sort of creep that up and you can get inside of, maybe a top 40 defense there, like a legit top 40 defense, and you can get, again, top 60 and pass against the pass, man, I think they literally could win the Pac-12 this year, man. I mean, you bring up a good point with USC and Utah and Oregon, but it's not like USC's defense is, it's not like they're knocking the world down over there, right? 100%. Utah, same way. Anytime Utah faces a really good defense, they give up a quadrillion points.
Yeah, no, and you're not wrong. And I'll wrap this up, I guess, since your ass couldn't, but no, you're exactly right, Christian. And I'm not disagreeing with anything with Washington, man. I think they're probably like, if I had to pick hey, Chris, what's the top, 3 most, I don't want to say controversial, but just top 3 teams this year that either could be super surprising or teams that probably don't finish as high as that you would think. So kind of, I guess, teams that just don't fulfill what we all think that they probably could be. And I would say underachieving, I guess. Yeah. Washington is one of those for me. I actually truly believe that they can be upper echelon, make the fucking playoff. And I also could see them going you guys went 9-4. You know what I mean? I could see that. And it pisses me off because I'm very high on Michael Penix, man. I think he's just a tremendous player. I watched him a lot at Indiana. So it's I know he's good. But you touched on it, man. I'll wrap it up with this. Their defense is where it comes down to. And you made a good comparison to Nebraska. Defense last year was trash. I'm not, and Nebraska isn't on the same level as Washington. Let's just be honest here. I know that. But when you talk about teams and teams I watch, it's Jesus, man. If we could have, defense is going to hopefully be better this year, probably win a couple more games. Washington in those big games, if you guys can just shut down a little bit of Caleb Williams, right? A little bit of Bo Nix, their offense is going to put up points. Yeah, that gets you there. And I'll leave it at that, man. I really, truly will. I hope Washington wins the Pac-12. I'll say that. I think Oregon's going to win it, though. And I'll leave it right there.